Hello, and welcome to another inspiring episode of Furries in the Media, the series that reviews videos and other media based on how the furry fandom is represented. Knock knock. Who's there? Furries. Furries who? Furry's a jolly good fellow. No, but really, what are we gonna review today, Abby? Well, Sam, today we're gonna check out a video made by Jubilee about a year ago with the title, I'm a Furry. Ask me anything. Jubilee is a media company that started in 2010 with the goal of making content that promotes empathy. It seems that they achieve this goal by featuring topics that people may find difficult to address in such a way that cuts through the ancillary noise and encourages open-mindedness. One series Jubilee has created, called Ask Me Anything, is true to form. They'll have someone from a particular group sit behind a curtain, and they then invite audience members and random people off the street to ask them anything. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The video opens with a clip of Bo saying that furries know how to party. Then, the Ask Me Anything introduction plays, where a narrator talks about how some subjects are difficult or uncomfortable to talk about. The introduction is paired with some relatively mundane video clips of furries and some other clips of furries that are uncomfortable to watch. The narrator goes on to explain that they've invited audience members and strangers to ask a furry anything. Bo, a furry who makes fursuits, introduces himself. A caption explains that he is sitting behind a curtain in order to keep the questions anonymous. The first person, who gets a chuckle out of seeing Bo's foot from underneath the curtain, asks him how he became a furry. Was it seeing Tony the Tiger? Bo jokes that Tony the Tiger is kinda thick before giving a more serious answer. Bo responds that he first became interested in furries at age 12 when he saw a video of furries dancing and decided to make his own fursuit. Bo clarifies to the person on the other side of the curtain that he makes his own fursuits for a living. While on the topic of making fursuits, a second person inquires exactly what it is that Bo does. He explains that he makes fursuits on a commission basis, and he had recently just made one to sell. A third person explains that their only context for furries is an episode of CSI in which he recalls seeing furries depicted having group sex, and one of them gets hit by a car or something. The stranger acknowledges that the depiction is negative and strictly sexual. Bo's head roll just about sums up every furry's reaction to this one. Yeah, I know, right? The third person then leads into their question, which is being a furry strictly a sexual thing? Bo instantaneously responds with absolutely not, explaining that it's one of the most annoying misconceptions about furries. We're treated to a quick montage of times when the other people have mentioned this misconception. Bo acknowledges that there are furries who are into the adult stuff, and that's okay. Bo says that at a baseline, it's just about costumes and being yourself. A fourth person asks what is the worst criticism that Bo has gotten for his hobby. Bo answers that he feels irked when people chalk it up as a sex thing and disregard all of the creative and talented individuals who create art and make costumes. Bo says that it's unfair to say that it's a sexual thing in its entirety, but that it's often portrayed that way in the media. A fifth person asks how Bo's family feels about him being a furry. Bo replies that his family is very supportive. They've taken him to conventions, and they were actually the ones to encourage him to start making costumes. We're back again with the third person who asks if furry is mostly a form of creative expression or if there is something deeper going on. Bo answers that it's probably both. As much as it is a channel for self-expression, he mentions that people with mental health issues may find comfort in the furry fandom. The camera cuts to what seems to be Bo responding to the second person, who has presumably asked a similar question. Bo says that he has come out of his shell and gained confidence in himself. The camera cuts back again to Bo responding to the third person, presumably on the same question as before. Bo continues to explain that wearing costumes allows people to not have to worry about being judged, and that some people may only feel comfortable expressing themselves through performance when they're wearing a costume. A sixth person says she knows that there are two different types of furries, the spiritual aspect and the cosplay aspect. She wants to know what's the main difference between the two and how Bo feels about both. Bo responds that those are not the two types, but rather that there are many types of furries. Bo defines furries as being into anthropomorphic animals, which are animals with human traits. Bo says that the spiritual side would better define otherkin or Therians, and while some otherkin and Therians are furries, they're not the same thing. Bo says that this is another misconception that some people outside of the furry fandom may have. While Bo is talking about otherkin, we are provided with a graphic displaying a definition for the term otherkin from dictionary.com. Quote, someone who identifies as a non-human species or mythological entity. In regards to Bo's career making fursuits, the first person asks whether Bo is seen as a predatory capitalist. Bo explains that the furry community has large consumer and provider bases, but that the making and spending of money is not what furry is about. People are there to have fun, but there is money involved for a lot of people. A seventh stranger asks what it's like for younger people going through the different phases of the furry community. Bo answers that many furries have an awkward phase where they don't really know how to interact with others. Bo acknowledges that he is still a bit socially awkward, but he has learned how to not be annoying online. Bo's message to younger furs is to be yourself, be kind, and don't steal art. The video begins to wrap up by showing us final remarks as the people leave the space. The fourth person commends Bo for his bravery and courage to be able to express himself. Bo responds, "Yeah, and the money helps." The camera cuts to Bo responding to an eighth person. Bo talks about how the furry fandom enables people to express themselves and better their craft, and inspires them to do things that they wouldn't normally do, like building costumes, drawing, animation, dancing, and making music. Bo claims that just about every form of art can be found in the furry fandom. Is there such a thing as a furry art installation? I mean, I think you could argue that a furry convention counts as an art installation, but that's a discussion for another day. Bo says that no one should feel shame for being a furry, no matter how you go about being a furry, and people should respect that. The video closes with some clips of Bo dancing in his fursuit. Now let's take a look at the review stats. Information accuracy is 100%, and the spirit is also 100%, giving us an average of, you guessed it, 100%. Congratulations, Jubilee! And now time for my thoughts. This entry in Jubilee's Ask Me Anything series definitely serves their goal of creating content that promotes empathy, which I think is a great approach, especially when representing furries. I also think that if you didn't know what furries are before watching this video, it could also be a decent introduction to furry fandom. It's not the most comprehensive introduction, but it's certainly not a bad place to start either. I felt that the video's format promoted objectivity and empathy in the people asking questions, the person answering the questions, and in the audience as well. The anonymity that the curtain provides makes it easier for the people asking their questions to move past their own preconceptions to get the answers that they really want, and for Bo to respond in the most truthful way he can. In turn, the audience gets to hear the answers to questions they might have asked, and maybe have a chance to learn a little bit more about furries. To top it off, Bo's personality gives this video a more lighthearted mood. Bo seems like a pretty cool dude, and I think his relaxed demeanor and ability to laugh at himself helps to put the audience at ease, and I found that it just made the whole experience that much more fun. Hey, doesn't the curtain kind of function like a mask? Huh. I hadn't thought of it that way, Sam. Now that you mention it, I think the curtain does serve a similar function to a fursuit. In both cases, having that visual barrier allows people to act in ways they might not normally act. You know, I can't help but think of that Oscar Wilde quote. Man is least himself when he talks in his own person. Give him a mask and he will tell you the truth. Obviously, Oscar Wilde didn't have furries in mind when he penned that, but I think it applies here. Is it just me, or did the head in Bo's lap change a few times? That wasn't just you, Sam. I saw it too. I can't exactly say what went on in the editing room, but given my own experience with video editing, here's what I'd guess. They film Bo and the people asking him questions, and based on this little montage, I think it's reasonable to assume that there were some repeat questions. In order to keep things interesting, I think the video editors would have likely edited together the best bits of footage they had, leaving out the repeated bits and grouping similar responses together to form a cohesive narrative that has a more natural flow to it. So yes, in a technical sense, the footage has been manipulated, but likely not for nefarious reasons. I will say, I'm glad they kept the sex misconception mostly contained to Bo's response to the third guy's question. As indicated by how often the topic was brought up during production, I think it's safe to say that that was the most burning question that most people would have about furries. I think it's a good thing to address the sex misconception, but not to dwell on it either. If the point of a given piece of media is to serve as an overview of the furry fandom, there are plenty of other aspects that are more important to spend time on. I especially like that they included the third guy saying that he knew CSI's depiction of furries is probably not true, because I imagine that's how most non-furries would see it. Hey, what about that intro? What about it? There were a lot of clips that kinda made furries look bad. Ah, I see what you mean. Yeah, some of the video clips in the intro were rough, but I don't think that was for the purpose of just making furries look bad. The narration during the introduction clearly says that some topics are hard to talk about, and I think these clips do a perfect job of illustrating this specifically when it comes to furries. Now, I did watch a few of the other videos in the Ask Me Anything series, and from what I could tell, the introductions in those videos got similar treatments too. Furries weren't singled out here. One thing that the video brought up that I thought was really interesting was how some people have the misconception that furry must have a spiritual component, when it really doesn't. I can see why someone might think this. If a furry puts all this time and effort into their persona, or an alternate identity, then it might seem that this is because there is a deeper meaning to it, like spirituality or religious belief, when that's generally not the case for most furries. At least not from what I've seen. I'd say that having a persona is like being a fan of a specific character, except you created that character. It is a unique representation of yourself. Some furries identify more closely with their persona than others, and some furries may incorporate spirituality or religious belief into that identity. There is some overlap between furries and otherkin, but I think the line is ultimately drawn wherever the individual draws it, whether they call themselves a furry or an otherkin. I like that the video included the definition for otherkin. While it may not be directly related to furry fandom, I appreciate that they took the time to include the definition for the audience's benefit.
Isn't it exploitative that Bo is in a fursuit?
I don't really think so.
Well, I think it is.
Well, let's discuss it then. You first.
Furry isn't just about the costumes. You and Bo both have said so.
That is true. Bo alludes to it in the video, and I have said in past episodes of Furries in the Media that you don't need a fursuit to be a furry. Now, I don't believe that it's possible to be a furry and not be a fan of anthropomorphic animals, but that's getting a little out of scope here. Now, to counter your argument, Sam, Bo is a fursuit maker. I think it makes sense for him to wear a fursuit in this case.
Even when the people asking questions won't see him?
Well, we don't know that he didn't get to meet those people afterwards.
Fair point. I still think it's only for the audience's benefit, but it's not like they're gonna forget his face.
Alright, I see where you're coming from. Bo introduces himself as a furry, he is on screen for much of the video, and when he is shown alongside a person asking a question, he is consistently kept on the right side of the screen. You do have a point, Sam. I don't think the audience is going to forget who he is anytime soon. My counterpoint is that there are instances of other people wearing relevant accessories in the other videos in the Ask Me Anything series. Not all of them, mind you, but I think it's clear that Bo isn't being singled out because he's a furry.
Fair enough. There's no way he isn't sweating under those bright lights, though.
That I will agree with you on. I bet that's why he's not wearing his fursuit head, and if that's why, I can't say that I blame him in the slightest. I really hope for his sake that they had water handing during filming. I think Bo keeping his head off actually works in the video's favor because I think it's a lot easier to connect with someone when you can see their face. While I can't ignore the points that Sam has made, I don't believe that Jubilee was trying to be intentionally exploitative by filming Bo in his costume. I think they could have just as easily done without it, but I also don't see the harm.
Not even how it makes it seem like furry is only about the costumes?
I think my opinion is changing on that. Yes, I'll still argue that the furry fandom is chiefly defined by a love of anthropomorphic animals and that you can't really be a furry if you don't like anthropomorphic animals. That's the extent of my gatekeeping. But I don't think it's entirely correct to deny the significance that fursuits have taken on in recent years. I think the video has done a satisfactory job of showing people that there is more to furry than just the costumes, but I think it's also okay that the costumes were featured as much as they were. Like I mentioned earlier, I did watch some of the other videos in Jubilee's Ask Me Anything series, and I feel that I came away from those videos with a better understanding of the people featured in those videos. If you decide to watch this or other videos in the Ask Me Anything series, just be aware that while they often deal with difficult subjects, they do seem to keep it at a PG-13 rating. As far as Jubilee's goal of creating content that promotes empathy, they clearly achieved that with this video. As far as how furries were portrayed, I think Jubilee knocked it out of the park. The empathetic format for the Ask Me Anything series lends itself to portraying furries in a way that I think can help to break down people's preconceptions and encourage understanding. Great job, Jubilee! Well, that's it for today's episode of Furries in the Media. Have fun, stay awesome, bye-bye!